Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get more videos like this. Before we start, just a big shout out to Ultim for sponsoring this video. Huge thanks. You can check the description to get a free trial of the Ultim software. All right, so here I am on the NOAA website, and I am just going to go, I happen to know where this is. If you just search space weather API, it'd probably be quicker, but I'm just going to kind of go and, walk through this. So here I am at home. I want to go to the tools and resources, and let's see, satellites. Heck yeah, I want to get information from satellites. I'm looking for space weather. I want to get a 3-day forecast. All right, so let me click on this. All right, and now it takes me to this Space Weather Prediction Center. That sounds cool. So now I'm going to go to Products and Data, okay? And this is kind of where they list some of their different APIs over here. And we said we were interested in, let's see, we're interested in some observations. Here we go. Okay, there we go. We want to get planetary K index right here. Okay, so right here, this is the graph of that K index that I was talking about, or I guess it's KP index. So on January 22nd, it was 3, it was 2. Let's see, on January 23rd, it was 3, it went down to 2. Today, it's like up at 1 right now. That's the number. That's this K number. Okay, so what I want to do is I actually want to get this number from their API. So I have to have a URL that I go to, and when I go to that URL, I do a GET request, I will be able to get data based on this value right here. So that sounds all crazy and stuff. What the heck am I talking about? Well, let me just show you here real quick. So what I'm going to do is let me get out of full screen mode so we can see this URL up here. All right, so how can I actually get this value? All right, so let's go back to products and data, and we're going to come down here and we're going to say data access. Okay, so we're at this data access, and now we want to get this via JSON, so we can go here. All right, and it's going to give us a list of a bunch of different stuff we can access. All right, so this is like a list of their different API endpoints, basically. And we're looking at the geospace stuff. Okay, so here we go. There's the 1 hour, the 7-day, and then this is the estimate. This is like the what they forecast right here. So I'm going to click on this, and then you see all this information right here. All right, so this right here is the JSON response. So like when we go to this URL right here, when we go to this URL, what gets returned is all of this stuff right here. Now, if you're not familiar, like this looks kind of gobbledygook, right? But this is actually in a format called JSON. And JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And it's basically a way of organizing data and sending it over the internet. It's really pretty common. There's other ways to do it, for example, XML, but JSON is really pretty popular. Now, this looks like gobbledygook, but if you go to a website, you can make it look nicer. So let me just find a website real quick, and we'll translate this to something nice. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to take all this stuff that looks kind of gobbledygookish. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it right in here. And now you'll notice, look how not gobbledygookish this looks, right? This is all of this data, but now it's kind of like laid out so that it looks more clear. And what we can see is that there's many entries of the exact same thing, right? And there's 2 values inside here, right? And each value or each name has a value associated with it. So model prediction time. So this is the time that this K value was taken, or this observation or prediction was made, right? And then we actually get the K value itself. In this case, it's a floating point value. It's 1.66, all right? So when we go to that URL, we get an array of all this stuff, all right? We get an array of a bunch of JSON objects, all right? And that's just, you see these curly braces. And so basically you have a curly brace that, is going to delineate one of these objects from another. So there's a big list of stuff. All right. What we've got to do basically is first we've got to grab this information, and then we need to parse it. Like we need to go through each one of these. We got to find which one of the observations we want, and then we need to dig into that observation and pull just the K index, just this K value. We want to get that value. So let's do that real quick here. We're going to do that inside processing. And the way we're going to do it is using a library, an open source library that is going to do the GET request for us. So what I'm going to do is go to Sketch, Import Library, and I'm going to add a library. And the one I'm looking for is called HTTP requests. Let's see if this will find it for us. There it is, HTTP requests for processing right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and install this. All right, it's installed. And now when I go to File, Examples, I should see a new folder down here called Contributed Libraries. And I can see they've got a bunch of examples for HTTP requests. Okay, now if you don't see this, if you don't see contributed libraries when you after you install that, you might have to close processing and open it back up in order to see this. When I was on my Mac, I had to do that. But what we're going to do is open up this JSON GET. All right, so I keep saying like GET request. You might be like, what the heck is what am I talking about? All right, so like, when with HTTP or Hypertext Transfer Protocol, there's like different ways of communicating from one computer to another. One of those ways is called a GET. It's like a GET request, and it's just like a standard protocol for getting information from another website. So that's when I'm saying GET, that's what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And in this program, we can see on line 1, it says import HTTP requests, right? So this is the library we just installed, and we got to make sure to import it. And then we can see, what is it doing here? All right, so it's got an object here called GET request. They name it GET, and they set it equal to GET request, and then they put a URL in here, all right? And what this is doing is it's hitting just a kind of dummy endpoint right here, okay? So what we need to do is get our URL and paste it inside here. All right, so let's do that. So here's our URL up here. I'm just going to copy that. And now here I am inside here. Now we need to keep these quotes. All right. So what this program is doing, this first line right here, is it's creating this GET request object. Okay, we're naming it GET. And this GET request object is going to be associated with that URL endpoint that we put in here. Okay, so that's what this GET request is. And again, we named it GET. So now when we do get.send, the program is going to go out and it's going to look at this URL endpoint, and any data that comes back, any JSON data, it's going to store inside this GET object. And then there's other functions we can call, like here we're using get send, right? But we got get content and just some other stuff that we're able to do. So let's go ahead and hit play. And what we should be doing is printing off the stuff that we saw on that web page. So let me just hit play here and see what happens. Okay, cool. All right, so now we did get an error. That's never fun, right? Did get an error, but we do see that we got all this information. So notice, you see down here in this console, this is all that stuff that we just pulled, all right? So that's pretty cool. All right, so we're on to something. We're actually able to grab the information. So now what we do is we have to parse it, all right? Now the error that we're getting here has to do with the fact that we are getting an array back, and we are trying to parse it as a simple object. So what we need to do is we need to get this content and then put it into an array. So let me do that.
Do you need a printed circuit board design software to move your prototype to the next level? Ultim Designer is a great choice for designing PCBs, sharing your design with team members, and even getting your design manufactured. What really kind of blows me away about this software is that even though it's a super powerful tool, at the same time, it's really intuitive to use. They've got helpful video tutorials built right into the software, so you can kickstart your learning process and actually get something made. Right now, you can get a free trial to Ultim Designer with our link in the description. That's right, you can test drive this super powerful software with a free trial. Just check out the link in the description.
All right, so this might look like a bit of like gobbledygook, like what the heck's going on? So let me try to walk through this. So we said that the GET request is going out, it's getting all of that data, right? So all that data is still down here. It's like this huge, this glut of stuff. It's an array of JSON objects. Okay, so what we do first is we create another object called a JSON array. We name it response and we set it equal to this parse function. So it's parse JSON array. And what we're doing is we're grabbing all the content. So this whole thing is getting passed into this parse JSON array. And basically it allows us to organize this data into a JSON array. Okay, so we've got all this information in a JSON array. Now what we want to do is we want to grab a specific reading out of that array. So what I'm doing is I'm creating another object called JSON Object. And again, these are like keywords from the processing library. If you go to the documentation and you look at JSON, it'll come up with these different functions and objects that you can use. So that's kind of what I did. I just looked at the documentation. It's pretty straightforward on their website. But again, the idea is we've got an array of these objects, and then we want to make a specific object. So what I do is I get that JSON object, and the one I want to get is the last reading, because if we go to the web page, we can see that the last reading, this is what, 2022, this one's at 1945. So this last reading here is more current than this first reading. So this is the value we want to grab. So I want to grab the last value inside the array. So how can I get the last value inside the array? Well, what I can do is I can get the size of the array. So response again is this JSON array. So I just do response.size. That's going to give me the length of the array. And then I subtract 1. So let's say there's like, I don't know, 10 elements inside this array. If I want to get the last element in the array, since arrays are 0 indexed, I have to actually look at the 9th. I've got to look at the 9th index. So I don't know, hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. If you've got questions about arrays, make sure to check out the other videos on our channel. We talk about arrays and the fact that they're 0 indexed. If that's odd to you, then you can check those out. Anywho, so all you do is you subtract 1 from that. So we've got the size, we subtract 1. That's going to give us the last element in the array. So now this object, this data object is equal to this right here, this last entry. So we're going to get model prediction time. It's going to give us this time, and then it's also going to give us the K value. But all we're interested in is the K value. So to dig down into this K value, I create another variable. It's an integer. I call it K index. And I set it equal to data.getFloat. So data is that JSON object, okay? So data is the JSON object, and I want to get a specific value from the object. So I use this get float function, and I'm getting K. So K is just the name. If I wanted to get model prediction time, I'd just write model prediction time right in here. But I want to get K, right? So I'm grabbing K. And then notice I have it inside this function called int. So this integer function is going to take this float value and it's going to turn it into an integer value, because I want to display it as a whole number. I don't want to display it as a floating point number. It's just going to be either a 0, a 1, a 2, so forth and so on. Okay, so that's why I'm casting this as an integer. Okay, and then I'm just kind of printing that out down here. So if I look down in the console here, I can see that I am actually grabbing K index, and it is currently a 1. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little sense. All right, so now what we've got to do is we've got to find a way, how can I get this value and send it over to the Arduino? So what I'm going to do now is write a little bit of code, and we're going to basically combine those two sketches we had before. So the other sketch was writing information to the Arduino. So I'm going to just grab some of that code. I'm going to write it in here, and instead of sending, an H or an L, I'm going to send this integer right here. So let me do that. All right, so I have reformatted this program a little bit, and this is what I'm doing. So up at the top, I'm importing HTTP requests and the processing serial library. So I've got both of these in here. At the top of the sketch, I'm creating this serial object. I'm naming it Arduino. And then at the top, I'm also creating this GET request. All right, so I'm passing that URL that was the API endpoint for the space weather to get that forecast for the most recent hour. All right, then down in setup, just for debugging purposes, I'm printing out the list of serial ports, and then I am assigning the first port in this array to this Arduino, this serial object that I created that I named Arduino. So again, it's taken the port name and the baud rate, which is 9600, which is what I'm using in the Arduino IDE. And again, this port list, you got to figure out, hey, which of your ports is actually assigned to the Arduino. In my case, it's the first port in the list, which happened, which I would index with 0. All right. Hopefully that's clear. It can be a little bit confusing. So then down in draw, again, draw is going to happen over and over and over again. I just set the background color of that little app that shows up, that box that shows up. And then what I do is I create an integer called k, and I set it equal to the return value of this function called get space weather. So get space weather is just this function down here, and it does exactly what we just did. It sends that request, then I have it print the request off, and then it parses the JSON response that it gets. Remember, we get an array, so I parse all of those things into a JSON array, and then I grab the object, just one object out of the array. I want to get the last object in the array, so I use the size of the response -1, that gets me the last object. And then to get a specific field, I use the getFloat function, which is just a function of this JSON object. So again, dad is the name of the JSON object, so getFloat is a function of that object. And I'm grabbing the named field called k. And then I cast it into an integer because it's a floating point value. I turn it into an integer, and then I save it in this value called k-index. Then I just print that off, and then I return that value. All right, and right now we can see down here, the k-index is currently 2. So, we were messing around earlier. It was, I think, I don't know, 1 or 0.66 or whatever. Now it's 2. All right, so then up here, back up and draw, right? So get space weather, whatever this value is going to get assigned to k. And then all we do is we call Arduino.write k. So again, just not to confuse anything, this Arduino is just the name we've given to that serial object. So up at the top, we create a serial object, and I named it Arduino. In the example before, I think they called it my port. This time I'm just calling it Arduino. All right. So that's what we're doing up there. And then down in draw, we're saying Arduino.write, and we're passing it this value k. Okay, so that should get the value 2 over to our Arduino. So what we need to do now is go over to the Arduino IDE and set it up so that it can take that value and then turn it into a number of LEDs that light on. So right now it's 2, so we would want 2 LEDs to light up. So let me do that, and then we'll talk about it. All right, so that was a lot of code. Let me talk about what I was doing here. So the first thing I did is I created an array that's going to hold the pin numbers associated with each indice, each K value essentially. So we're going to get a K value between 1 and 9. Now my array only goes up to 8. It's because I've got 8 LEDs on my kit on a shield. So I figured out, I'll just have a special case for the 9th one that I haven't implemented yet, but that should be easy enough. Anyway, so number 6, the 6th pin is connected to an LED. The 7th pin is connected to an LED, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, and so on and so forth. So when I see 1, I want to be able to turn on the LED connected at pin 6. When I see 2 come in as the K index, I want to light up LED 7, or 6 and 7, that is. So forth and so on. Anyway, so I make this array, it's holding pin numbers, and then I have this value right here, this K indices. This is basically the size of the array. So I'm just passing that in here, and it's a constant, right? Otherwise, that wouldn't work for setting the size of an array. You need to use a constant. Okay, or just a primitive value like an 8 or something like that. Okay, in setup, I'm starting serial communication. It's important that the baud rate here matches what you had in processing in that serial object that we created. And then I'm using a for loop, and I am walking through the array, and I'm setting each of these pins as outputs. Now, if you're not familiar with what is going on here and you're wondering man, this is all crazy, you can check out the other videos we have on using arrays, or you can check out our training program. We teach, all about this type of programming with Arduino, and that'll make a lot more sense. But basically, we're setting each one of the pins as outputs on the Arduino that we're going to be using here. All right, then down in the loop, what we're doing is we are checking, hey, is anything available at the serial buffer? If something is available at the serial buffer, if there's data in the serial buffer, then we are going to read from the serial buffer, and whatever we read, we're going to assign to this byte called K index. Then we're going to pass that K index value. Again, it's going to be a number between 0 and 9. At least that's what we're expecting, right? We're going to take that number and pass it to a function that I wrote called set K indicator LEDs. All right, so what does this function do? Well, it's pretty simple. It's just right down here, set K indicator values. It takes an integer value, which I call K inside this program. And the first thing it does is it just goes ahead and turns off all of the LEDs in that K indices array, right? So it uses a for loop, just like we did up in setup, except now it's, instead of setting pin modes, it's just writing all of those pins low. And then what it does is it goes through, and based on this value K, it writes up to those number of LEDs high, right? So this is going to turn off all the LEDs, and then this is going to just turn on the LEDs that matter. And that's pretty much it. So now we've got a program that is looking for serial input. When it sees serial input, it's going to go ahead and set the LEDs appropriately. And I don't know what the space weather is looking like right now. Right now it's showing 0. So let's look at the space weather forecast here. So this isn't very pretty, but you can see the current forecast is 0, but a little bit ago it was 2. So it would have lit up 2 LEDs, but basically this works now. So what we're doing is we are going out, grabbing information from the internet with this processing sketch that we wrote, and then we are sending that information to a port on our computer where the Arduino is looking, and the Arduino is able to grab that information and then do something with it. And in this case, we're just displaying some values on our kit on a shield. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that made some sense. If you have any follow-up questions on this, please post them in the comments. I would love to hear them. Again, huge shout out to Ultim for sponsoring this video. And if you really want to dive in and learn more about this programming stuff, make sure to check out programmingelectronics.com. And we've got a bunch of training on how to program Arduino. All right, thanks a lot and have a great day. Bye.